those of you that don't know me, I'm Doug Moody. I'm standing in again today as a facilitator while we continue to work to identify the right long-term facilitator for the CWGs. And just a note that we intend to work with the chairs for the CWGs as part of this process to select the next long-term facilitator. So Anna, we intend to be in touch with you as this process advances. Next slide, please. So on to today's meeting, which this meeting is also in a slightly different format than a regular CWG meeting. This is because, an extra CWG meeting, we're billing an extra round of the CWG summer socials, right? They're in between the regular ones, but we couldn't hold those tight because, in-person meetings are still the type of meeting we wanted to hold. It's still kind of an issue with COVID still being around. So it's a different format, but today we're going to focus on sharing the story of how the Santa Clara BART station has been designed to date, where it's headed, and we've also heard that's a topic that's been desired group. And then after the presentation, we have some polling questions for you. Then we plan to break into small group discussion rooms where we want to talk with you about the priorities for station design. We also have an interactive exercise that we think will be fun, useful, in an insightful way to facilitate discussions during the small group breakout sessions. Then after the small group breakout sessions, we'll ask each small group to select a CWG member from your group to summarize key takeaways from the small group discussions to be shared with the larger group. We also want to reserve as much time as possible for feedback and discussion during the later part of the meeting after VTA gives our relatively short presentation on station design. So we ask that you limit your questions and comments to clarifying questions until we get to the discussion part of the meeting, which we have a lot of time reserved for. And then before we adjourn today's meeting, we'd like to share with you some information about next steps for the BSV project and some upcoming engagement opportunities, including those related to the next phases of station design. Next slide, please. So then before we get into the presentation, with the CWG members present, would you please introduce yourselves to the group? And just to keep it short so we can reserve that time for discussion, just name an organization, and then I'll just jump down the list. So Anna, would you like to go first?
Anna Vargas Smith. I live in the Old Quad, also part of Reclaiming Our Downtown and the Chamber Board and Downtown Community Task Force.
Thank you, Anna. I don't believe I see Christian here today. If Christian, you're here, someone standing in for Christian.
That would be me.
Okay, perfect. Todd, I don't see Todd either. David, would you please say hello to the group again?
Sure. I'm David Schoenwetter. I've been with Santa Clara University about a year now, coming up. I live just off campus in a university housing location right now. Love the Bay Area. I'm a retiree from Lockheed Martin in Sunnyvale, and then moved over to the university. Great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, David. I don't see Jack. Don't see John. If anyone. Oh, there you are, Jack. I see you. I'm just expanding my window to see all the folks in the room. Please say hello, Jack.
Hey, how you doing, everyone? It's Jack Morash, South Bay Historic Railroad Society. We're at the Caltrain depot there, and glad to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. I don't see John. I don't see John Urban. I do see Jonathan Evans. Jonathan, would you like to say hello?
Hello, my name is Jonathan Evans, and I'm representing the Old Quad Residents Association. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, and welcome. Luke, I don't see Luke, or Ron Miller. If there's any CWG members I missed or may have shown up after I read through the list, please chime in and say hi. Okay, I think that's it. So thank you very much. With that, I'm gonna pass it over to Bernice to give a quick overview of the overall benefits of VTA's BART Silicon Valley project. Bernice, over to you.
Bernice, I believe you're muted.
Not a good start. Sorry about that. As we begin today's session, and we're going to talk a lot about the station and some of the attributes of the station, I just wanted to go over some of the overall benefits of the BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project and the benefits that this project will bring to Santa Clara County residents and to the businesses that will be able to attract more employees to those businesses. There are, of course, all of the environmental benefits, the reduction of carbon emissions, eliminating nearly 4 million auto trips every year, connecting to other mobility options, especially at the Santa Clara station with the connections to Caltrain and some of the other rail connections, and to our bus service and regional bus service. And really important, I wanted to emphasize the average travel time savings. I know we're focusing a lot, and as we go through today, we're going to focus a lot on a little bit of this trip at the station, but just really wanted to emphasize that on a 50-mile commute, like going to San Francisco, this shaves off 30 minutes of that commute. So just wanted to really talk about some of those huge benefits. We focus on some of these little bits and pieces, getting to the station, getting from the parking garage, but just really wanted to emphasize the overall travel time savings. Also wanted to emphasize the connections for students at both San Jose State University and Santa Clara University through both the downtown station and the Santa Clara station, and the way that we're delivering this project, especially in Santa Clara and through downtown San Jose, really looking at limiting those disruptions and not further impacting businesses that have been through so much the last couple of years. So I think that's about it. Just wanted to give the overall framework of the large benefits for so many of this project, whether they're going to be riding it or benefiting from the environmental benefits that we all need right now. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Erica, I believe now.
Great, thank you, Bernice. I'm going to walk through the goal, some of the station goals. One of the goals for all of the stations is to provide a high quality user experience. The Santa Clara station is designed to provide high quality user experience in many ways, including by being designed to be pleasant and interesting. Next slide. The Santa Clara BART station is also being designed to provide direct, quick, and intuitive paths of travel. The existing Santa Clara pedestrian undercrossing is a fixed access point on the western side of the station, and working from this access point to create direct, quick, and intuitive paths of travel has been one of the drivers in the station design. All 4 stations are being designed to support wayfinding that make it easy for users to know which station they are at by simply looking at the station. This is a view of the Santa Clara BART station from the east side on Champions Way. The Santa Clara BART station is planned to incorporate color and less reflective wood-like materials as requested by CWG members in the community during the 2021 station look and feel effort. And these design treatments support a unique and iconic station identity that helps support wayfinding. Things that may be done to make the station more iconic will be discussed later in today's meeting. The community will also be re-engaged to advance and refine the look and feel of the station after the contractor is brought on board, including to help determine what final colors for the station should be. The project also includes many components to integrate the station with its surroundings, including the access improvements that connect and integrate the station with the existing transportation system and surrounding environment. This here on the screen is some of those for Santa Clara. I walked through these improvements during the May CWG meeting. Some of these here are related to connecting to the existing undercrossing and pedestrian and bicycle facilities. And on the next slide, we have more related to pedestrian and bicycle safety at intersections and bicycle storage and parking. The project also has technical requirements that it must achieve and technical goals that it seeks to achieve. Technical requirements include remaining within the approved project footprint and meeting the parking, BART facility, and fire life and safety requirements. The project must also be buildable, operable, and maintainable within the project budget. The project also seeks to be cost effective by optimizing that which is achieved within the project budget. This work includes finding the right balance of solutions amongst considerations like essential infrastructure for a BART station and a maintenance yard, sustainable solutions embedded in station and yard design to accommodate core functions, sustainable treatments, aesthetic and facade treatments, landscape design, and the secured versus unsecured areas, as well as staffing costs. The goals described above on the slides that I just walked through apply to all the stations that are part of VTA's BART Phase 2 project. What's shown on this and the following slides are unique goals for the Santa Clara BART station. These goals are heavily informed by the work we've done with you and other members of the community. For example, through the station look and feel effort in 2021, we heard from you and other members that the Santa Clara BART station should establish a new landmark that represents the history and diversity of Santa Clara, while also striking a balance between modern and historic Santa Clara. We're working to identify designs that fit within this criteria while also resonating with you and other members of the community. We've also heard the desire for less reflective wood-like materials, space for retail kiosks, and infrastructure to accommodate future solar panels and electric vehicle parking, all of which we've incorporated into the current station design, and bathrooms are also included in the current station design. We also intend to continue to incorporate more greenery, more color, more wayfinding elements, all things that are aligned with desires for this station that we've heard from the community. We've also heard desires to create a more active station and to establish a greater sense of place in and around the station to create opportunities for a more vibrant and enjoyable experience. We're exploring ways to do this, some of which are listed on this slide. We also have exercises set up for discussion with you after we get through this portion of the presentation and move into the more interactive portion with polling questions and small group breakout discussions like Doug mentioned. We also expect to further explore these possibilities when the community is re-engaged to advance and refine the look and feel of the station after the contractor is brought on board sometime in 2024 timeframe. As a reminder, here are some images of potential performance spaces that we shared to inspire thinking during the 2021 station look and feel efforts. And on the next slide is the location within the space shown in purple there within the elevated concourse that was identified as a potential performance space. This area has also been identified as one of the potential locations for a future retail kiosk, which the community has also said is desired for this station. The most desirable uses for this space and how to balance these uses is something that will continue to be explored and determined as the project advances. I'll turn it back to Doug.
Yeah, thanks, Erica. Next up is we have Sarah. She's going to talk a little about the requirements that must be met and taking into account for designing this and other stations that are part of the project. So Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Doug. And for those, I don't think I've met a lot of you, but I'm VTA's PM for this contract. So happy to be here. So on this slide, some of the things that establish requirements and create constraints for the station design are listed here. Our project has to fit within the project description and meet the commitments in the approved environmental impact statement and subsequent environmental impact report. This station must also be designed to meet BART's operational and design requirements, including those that we have in the established design criteria manual for this project. These were and continue to be established through a partnership between BART and VTA. Our design criteria manual, for those not familiar with it, is essentially the established BART requirements that have been updated and tweaked so much to account for VTA's policies and kind of applicable needs for this specific project. So in addition to all this, the California Building Code and local and national fire life safety standards must also be followed. Next slide. So I'd like to share with you some of the framing concepts that inform, constrain, and essentially drive how the Santa Clara BART station is designed. So first, the station is both a beginning of the line and end of the line station, we like to say, because I think those are both kind of two unique aspects of it. This location, in the system is really the appropriate place for a train storage and maintenance facility, which is part of the reason it's been located here. Second, the yard requires a significant amount of space to accommodate all the necessary facilities. So these include, for example, tracks to store, service, and transfer trains, facilities to inspect, maintain, fuel, wash, and clean the trains, space for employees to park, an electrical substation, and last but not least, a back of the house building for the station, which is the building in the lower image, on the left side of the lower image on the slide here. So areas in this back of house building for this end of the line station include facilities for BART emergency services, including personnel, rooms and equipment for train control, power and communication systems, offices and meeting room areas, and lockers and break rooms for BART operators. So this isn't an exhaustive list of what needs to be included. You know, there's many other things, but these are the key ones. So this beginning of the line and end of the line storage and maintenance facility and the accompanying back of house building that I just mentioned requires a lot of space, as does the parking garage, which is also a project requirement. And they do constrain the space available for the station, but VTA, like Santa Clara community, we really want the station to be a high quality station, as was described earlier by Erica. And, for this reason, the yard, the back of house building, and the garage, they all have been reconfigured a couple times to really better accommodate station design, and the station design has not been compromised. So, it's also worth noting that the yard and station cost roughly the same. And so, designing to achieve optimal outcomes has really been a balancing act. There's also things we're still working on, and we look forward to working with you during the next phase of the station design during this upcoming round of design review committees and public engagement on the look and feel of the station. So this is a cross-section of the current Santa Clara BART station concept. For reference, the San Jose Airport and PayPal Park are to the east, which is on the left side of the slide, and the Santa Clara Transit Center, Santa Clara University, and downtown are to the west, which is on the right side of the slide. So this view is in this section is taken from Brokaw Road, looking southeast. So there's several BART operational requirements that need to be met in order for the system to function properly, which include providing a single center platform with 2 mainline tracks, which can be seen just to the right of the storage tracks labeled on this slide. So passengers can intuitively board the next train leaving, as trains can leave from either side of the platform in the same direction. The platform also needs to accommodate a full 10-car BART train, which is roughly 700 feet long. And, just to note that inherently with an at-grade platform, given that the tracks are on either side of the platform, vertical circulation will be required either up or down to access the platform. Next slide. So as represented in this image, the form of the Santa Clara BART station is somewhat constrained by both the existing and future built environment around the station, including the Gateway Crossing development that's to the south of Champions Way, and the BART yard and back of house building that were described earlier. The station platform is located on the west side of the project boundary, closer to downtown Santa Clara, largely due to design speed and curvature requirements coming out of the tunnel portal at the south end of the yard. The station platform can be accessed from the west side via the existing Santa Clara pedestrian undercrossing, or from the east side of the station by using the elevated concourse, which is the 2 green arrows on the slide here. So, and also as described earlier, the existing Santa Clara pedestrian undercrossing is a fixed access point on the west side of the station, and working from this access point to create direct, quick, and intuitive paths of travel has really driven the station design. The location of the concourse above the platform creates opportunities for direct access to the platform, and although locating the concourse below could also meet this goal, it comes with additional safety and security concerns, additional ventilation requirements, and similar vertical circulation issues, all at a much higher cost. The number of parking spaces that need to be provided is an established project requirement, and the parking garage is located towards the south end of the station area for a couple reasons. First is that a location towards the north would misalign the western entrance with the existing undercrossing. And second, it would severely constrain emergency and service vehicle access via Brokaw Road, as the parking structure and ramp would spill onto Brokaw Road due to the size of the structure. Next slide. So this table summarizes the station design concepts that the teams explored, their distinguishing features, and the reasons why the station design concept was or was not advanced. which were also described earlier and in more detail during the May 10th Santa Clara Council study session. So I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end if you have those about these options. The preferred option that's included in our RFP, request for proposal, includes an elevated concourse with the western entrance directly aligned with the existing pedestrian undercrossing, and includes the parking garage on the south side of the concourse, as we just showed. The parking garage entrance will be on Champions Way, which provides access from Coleman Avenue, either via Champions Way or Brokaw Road, alleviating the need for all traffic to use Brokaw Road. The concept of the current design has also been determined to be acceptable by VTA BART and our Fire Life Safety and Security Committee. We received a lot of feedback at the May 10th Santa Clara Council study session, which we spent a significant amount of time vetting and going through. Some of this is project related and some of this is really outside the scope of the project. Some of the items that were mentioned at the study session that are outside the scope of the project include connections between Benton and Brokaw Road, amenities to create more of a gateway to Santa Clara from the west side of the station, and incorporating more vertical circulation elements like elevators, escalators, or bike stair channels at the west side of the Santa Clara pedestrian undercrossing. These are just generally outside the project footprint, and so that's largely the constraint we have here, and outside the project description. But these types of improvements are all, I think we all agree they're very good ideas, and can and should be explored through the upcoming Santa Clara station area specific planning effort that will be jointly completed by VTA and the City of Santa Clara, or as part of a greater station access study. Other items that were mentioned, I think a little more than half, are elements that are within the project scope, and the vast majority of which we intend to include. So public restrooms, space for retail kiosks, additional pedestrian flow studies, different types of trees, exterior lighting. This is all within the project scope, and the process to select trees and exterior lighting will be part of the later processes that will include community engagement. So we did hear about the concerns with the Benton to Brokaw pedestrian and bicycle aerial connection that the BSV program, in response to earlier requests, had intended to advance as a concurrent non-project activity. But based on the feedback we got in May, we looked at other ways to improve the passenger experience and access from the west, and developed a concept for what we call a west side underground concourse. It's essentially like a partial underground concourse. Doug will share some more information about this a little bit later in the presentation, as well as opportunities to discuss, this piece of major infrastructure that could become part of the station. Next slide. So just as a reminder, information regarding our timeline to deliver this project. We're nearing the end of the planning, engineering, and procurement phase, and starting to enter the final design and construction stage. Regular BART passenger service is expected to begin by about 2030. Thus far, the federal government has planned to commit $425 million to VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project. FTA announced a commitment of $125 million in August 2019, and then another $100 million in January 2021. There's also another $200 million in President Biden's proposed budget, and a full funding grant agreement with FTA is expected next year. So the request for proposals RFP to the 3 pre-qualified contractors that submitted SOQs for this project to build the Santa Clara Station and Yard is planned to be released later this summer. Contractor proposals can include technical alternative concepts for the station and/or yard design. Major construction activities for the station and yard will begin after the contractor is selected and the design for the core station components are finalized in partnership with BART and the city in 2025. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Doug.
Thank you, Sarah. And we are doing well on time, so thank you for that and keeping it concise. This is the part of the meeting where we want to transition to hearing from you, members of the public and the CWG. Jonathan, I will, actually, I'll pause there. Jonathan, I see your hand up. Jonathan, please go ahead.
Yeah, a couple questions about the last presentation. The first question I had was, one of the biggest concerns, or it seems to be limiting what you can do, is the storage of the trains underneath the facility kind of precludes having, more direct access to the concourse. And what options did you explore to move that storage maybe further down within the area? I know there was a strip of land that was adjacent to the planned facility that was available, which I think was recently sold, but VTA may have had a chance to acquire it. Why was that not used for train storage? Could you address that?
I can start, and then maybe Bernice, you can help me with the real estate piece of it. But the 40 acres that we have here, we're using every square inch of property we have available. And it's really been a balancing act with, as I was kind of noting, with the station and yard design to, meet all the requirements for both. The extension can't, be operated without sufficient space for BART's train storage and sufficient maintenance capabilities. So, you need both. You need the station, you need the storage and maintenance. And so, it is a very large footprint of land. And I think we've tried to be mindful and, efficient and balanced with how that's been utilized. So we, in terms of the footprint we have available, there's not an option to move storage tracks out from their current locations without kind of dipping below BART's needed storage capacity requirements, and also compromising their operational needs for accessing both the yard and the station. I think in terms of kind of this additional strip of land, Bernice, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I think, as Sarah just mentioned, looking at the overall implications, environmental implications of additional property, and working within a realistic project budget, we demonstrated, this is a federally funded project, and we have demonstrated that we can fit all the required facilities on the current footprint. So that is the goal. And I think even more, what I want to say, like the storage, yeah, there's 2 rows of storage tracks that you go over from the west, but you're also going underneath the Caltrain tracks, right? So when you're looking at, and I think Doug will share some of the drawings in the future, when you're looking at the path of travel, like some of that is very minimal compared to your overall path of travel. So as a being, financially responsible of public monies, we looked at what was the smallest footprint that we could still fit all of the required elements on. And that is the solution that we've presented and the project we submitted for funding.
Okay, I had a second question. You mentioned, looking at access and addressing that as maybe part of the station area plan, but given that it looks like a lot of the access and stuff was going to be part of this initial build, like realistically, is there anything that will be changed? It seems like it's kind of too late to push it into the plan to try to update access if we're constructing the station now, right? Because what the station, I assume we're in yard is going to live for 100+ years. And I'd like to understand more about, how do we think that's actually going to address those concerns?
Yeah, so
Well,
I can go ahead and
Erica.
take that question. So we're providing a lot of access improvements directly adjacent to the station, and some of the requests were for greater access in the area that are not specific to the station. There's still a way to get across east and west, and the project will work with these future projects that VTA and the city move forward with on other greater station area access. But the ones that were farther out that are kind of more holistic, city, something the city has been working on, those are the ones that are not included as part of the project. So, I mean, we're providing improvements at several intersections, we're adding bicycle facilities. We're making sure that the connections, work and such. And so it's not that we're not doing any access improvements, but some of those specific things that were requested at the study session are not within the scope of the project and are greater area access issues that can be addressed through these other plans that are about to get kicked off. So we've had initial conversations with the city and our partners at VTA on this, and everyone is aware to continue to move these forward, as we know that they're something that you all are passionate and concerned with.
I guess my question was more like, if the station is maybe there's improvements that want to be made, and is there any flexibility to move things around? Because like the station might get in the way of providing some of those improved access. I'd like to learn more about this, like underground concourse as an example. Yeah,
so if we can move forward with the presentation, then you'll be able to hear a little bit more, because we've got some of that additional details once we get into the polling questions here.
And I think just to add to what Erica said, most of the items that were raised as kind of nice additions to improve access overall in the station, greater area, the station moving forward, more or less in its current configuration doesn't preclude most of that from happening. If there's specific ones you want to talk about, we can do that. But, improving access kind of at the west side of Caltrain, or, making the west side more of a gateway, or even sort of a vehicular, pedestrian undercrossing Benton to Brokaw, the station doesn't preclude any of that. So I think the kind of the direct access to the station, which is this, kind of expanded underground concourse we'll talk about, is kind of the key thing that really is integrated in the station and is essentially the alternative to the pedestrian overcrossing that was discussed previously, which is also something that would have need to had, provisions for a direct connection. So hence why we're looking at this right now.
Thank you, Sarah, Erica, and Bernice for providing your responses. David,
hey, thanks. Mine are two just inputs from the new guy here listening in. What we're discovering, and what I've discovered both current job and past job, is demand for space, in this case, station size, number of trains, et cetera, is directly related to, or is changing by COVID and return to office assumptions. And so if a large percentage of your ridership may be commuters going to office or not going to office based on emerging return to office policies with some of the big software or whoever it may be, just think about that in your sizing and demand. And I just suggest that. Something you planned for 2 or 3 years ago pre-COVID may no longer stand true in today's new work environment. So that's just one piece to think about. The second is when you get into a $500 million kind of job, I really would advocate some of the Lean Construction Institute concepts. If you haven't or have followed Lean Construction Institute, UCSF has done quite a bit of them, but it's a shared risk approach. And I think it's very, very powerful in something like this. Those are just my two inputs. Thank you.
Just related to ridership, understand that things have changed due to COVID and such, but assuming, we want things to eventually come back to what we would like them to be, we have a ridership model that is an FTA approved process that we've gone through to determine the ridership at the station and the parking needs and such. And so we're maintaining that as we envision and hope that everything can kind of get back to those levels at some point. So that's what we're still designing for.
Understood.
Okay, thank you for the clarifying questions. And a reminder, so after the established polling questions that we have in the small group breakout, we're starting to just get a little bit behind on time, but we still have a lot of time. There's a good amount of time reserved for discussion at the end of the meeting. So I'm gonna jump back into the polling question part of the presentation. So we do have some polling questions we'd like to ask you. They're intended to provide us with information the VTA may use to inform the next phase of station design, and also to get you thinking about how you and others may use the station. So you have used the user perspectives of the station as currently designed, the user experience perspectives of using the station fresh in your mind for the small group breakout discussion. And like I said earlier, after that exercise, there'll be the report back into the larger group. So with that, let's get into the polling questions. Marissa, next slide, please. I'm sorry, Kristen, next slide, please. So, like I said, just starting to think about, user perspective that'll help inform the small group breakout. And the last question in this group is about the Underground Western Concourse. This one's about the mode of transportation you'd use to access the station. Did you see yourself walking, or using an accessible mobility device? A note there is that all the walking paths are designed to accommodate things like wheelchairs. Do you see yourself biking, scooting, or using another similar device, transferring from bus or rail, getting dropped off, or driving? And this should be programmed so you can select multiples of these if you see yourself traveling to the station using multiple modes. And then after this starts to settle, Adriano, please a reminder to take a snapshot of the results from the group, so we have that information available to inform discussions during the small group breakouts. And I see a different thing on my side, having host privileges for the meeting. So once I see this start to stabilize, I'll ask Kristen to close the poll and then share the results with the group, and then Adriano will take the screenshot. And I see it starting to stabilize, so I'll do a 5-second countdown and then we'll share the results. 5, 4, 3. Oop, still getting some. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kristen, would you please share the results with the group? So pretty even distribution here. It looks like most folks envision themselves getting dropped off at the station. So Adriano, please screenshot that. And Kristen, would you please go to the next slide? So that one was all modes. Then we have some quick questions focused on individual modes, unique modes. This one's about bike parking and storage. If you were to bike to the station, do you see yourself using the bike racks on Champions Way, the bike racks on the Concourse, the bike lockers on the west side of the station, the bike lockers on Champions Way, the secured bike station in the northeast corner of the station? And there's a sample photo of a bike station there in the lower right-hand corner, or bringing your bike on the BART train. And I'll give some time for people to provide their responses. And the 5-second countdown once it starts to stabilize. Seeing some stabilization. 5, 4, oop, there's some more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kristen, would you please provide the results? So interesting. Most folks clearly see themselves using the bike lockers on the west side of the station, or bringing their bike onto the BART train. Kristen, next slide, please. I think there's a total of about 7 questions. This next one is about bicycle experience of a cyclist using the station. If you're traveling through the station on your bike. Oh, and then a note about vertical circulation. The next couple slides say this a few times, and vertical circulation is kind of a technical term, but it really just means escalators, elevators, or stairs. So if you're traveling through the station on your bike, would you expect to use, noting that bikes aren't allowed on escalators, would you expect to use the elevator? Would you expect to use the stairs, the bike channels? By the way, all stairs in this station are expected to have, or will have bike channels, or would you carry your bike on the stairs?
Excuse me, what is a bike channel?
The bike channel is, so if you have a stairway, there's like a little groove on the side of the stairway. So rather than having to pick up your bike, you can put your wheels in that channel and push it up that channel.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Things are looking stabilized. 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kristen, please share the results. So pretty evenly split. Folks envision themselves using elevators and the bike channels. No one envisions themselves carrying their bike up the stairs, which I think Adriano Did you vote? Adriano clearly didn't vote because that's what he would do. Next slide, please, Kristen. So vertical circuit, the last question was for bikes, this one for pedestrians. When you're walking through the station, would you expect to primarily use escalators, elevators, or stairs? Seeing things start to stabilize. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kristen, would you please share the results? And Adriano, be sure to capture the screenshot. So the most folks, if they're walking, clearly see themselves most using escalators, using elevators, some using stairs. Okay, those are the quick and easy ones. Next slide, please, Kristen. So this is where we get to the Western Underground Concourse that Sarah mentioned earlier. And this is a meaty question. So after the May 10th City Council study session, the BART project team, VTA's BART project team, looked at other ways to improve the passenger experience and access from the west side of the station, and developed the concept, the West Side Underground Concourse. And that's the concept being referred to on this slide. This partial underground concourse, this concept would be in addition to the current elevated concourse design. And Kristen, could you jump to the previous slide, please, so I can explain that a little bit? And please follow my words with your cursor. So here's how the West Side Underground Concourse would basically work. It's not shown on this image, but once passengers are exiting the existing pedestrian undercrossing shown on the right of this image, they would reach they would travel to the left, to the east, until they reach the location of the elevators and stairs shown in the image on the west side of the station. And then they continue towards the new concourse, which once again isn't shown, but it's underneath the platforms. And to get there, they travel down a half flight of stairs or take a ramp down. And then they get to that partial underground concourse located under the platform. There they pass through fare gates and then take elevators, escalators, or stairs up to the platform. So if we go back to the following slide with the question, please, Kristen. So the question for you is kind of just really highlighting that trade-off, a lot of what is captured over here, down here in this table. So that major infrastructure improvement, we think it'd reduce about 25 seconds of walk time if folks were used to use the most likely path, right? And the differences are really laid out here. Without that improvement, you go up to the elevated concourse. So there's longer vertical movements, and you also spend more time in elevated open air. If that improvement was added, there's slightly shorter vertical movements. There's a time savings, but you do spend more time underground. So what we want to ask of you is the polling result is how much do you think this type of infrastructure being added to the station is worth? Is it worth $1 million, $10 million, $30 million, $50 million, or more? I already see some responses.
May I ask how you came up with the estimate that an elevator is 1 minute 20 seconds versus a 55-second escalator? It'd be good to understand
it's the full travel route. And Lester, you did that calculation. Lester, do you want to describe the calculation you did?
Actually, I didn't do the calculation, but I could tell you how it was done.
Okay.
So if we all start at I don't know if you want to go to the previous slide, but if we all start as you exit the tunnel from Caltrain side and you're standing in this diagram in front of the elevator at the bottom, that's where we start. So for the base condition, you would go up that elevator. You would walk across to the left, assuming you didn't have to get a ticket or upgrade your Clipper card. You would go through the fare gates, walk down a bit on the that upper concourse, and then take an escalator down to the platform. Oh, I'm sorry, not there. Yeah, there you go. And then walk to the edge of the platform to board your train. And that's where we did the stopwatch, so to speak. So we estimated, well, how long would it take to take the escalator? How long would it take to take the elevator? How long would it take to walk whatever it was, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what, X hundred of feet or whatever it was. So that's how we got that time. So we're using the same time or relative time for walking speed and taking into account, is it a longer elevator ride? Is it a longer escalator ride? We went the other way now. So we started at the same place. We would walk to go through the underground concourse. We would walk down that half flight of stair, walk a little bit, go through the fare gates that are downstairs, walk a little bit more, and then we would take the escalator up. So of course there are other ways to get to the platform, but we figured, oh, that's probably the most common way. You would walk down the stair and you would take the escalator back up. So there's less like horizontal walking, and the ride, and you don't have to wait for an elevator. So that. Yeah,
I guess I'm trying to understand like how you came up with like an elevator wait time. Like, typically elevators take longer than a minute to go up and down. There's a wait time, so on average people might miss. But then also you mentioned like in this case you're just going up an escalator, which is I assume the same distance as you're going down the escalator from the top. So there's only one escalator thing. So I'm just trying to understand how that's only 20 seconds. It doesn't seem like it adds up.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I'm gonna have to trust Lester and the other professionals on this, when there's some calculation done on the other side. Jonathan, I think this might be something that if you really wanted the details how the calculation was done, we can take offline, but I don't think it's important to talk
we
about
can take it
this
offline, but I'd love to see how it's done. So maybe you can send me the formula and the map.
I want to make a mention. I can't put my hand up. This is Dan Undersek. The time issue is secondary to safety in my mind, and scores of people in my group. Are we just judging this on time savings?
Well, I think one thing to note, I see some of your comments in the chat here, is that the existing undercrossing is unchanged in either scenario. So it's just what we're talking about is just what happens once you leave the existing undercrossing that's coming from the Caltrain side, essentially. So either from that point, you go up to the concourse, like Lester described, you take elevators up to the concourse and then go back down to the platform. Or what's, slightly faster is to basically continue in this separate underground alcove and then just go right up to the platform. But in either scenario, the existing pedestrian tunnel remains as is.
Can we maybe have Kristen just show with the arrow what that difference is? It's just kind of, can you put it at that corner right there? And then you would just do the down diagonal movement to the bottom of the gray, right? And then up. That is the difference going up versus, and then can you follow the blue arrows, Kristen? Yeah. And that's where you get the 25 seconds right there. It's about 1.5 flights of stairs, right? You're saving about, you're going a half a flight down and then just one flight up versus going up the 3 stories or whatever, 2.5, and then down 1.
Okay, are there any other clarifying questions on this survey question?
I wanted to provide a clarifying comment related to costs. So the total cost for the station is $180 million. And so just wanted to put that in, add that piece of perspective as you're thinking about how much you'd be willing to spend in addition on this additional piece related to the overall cost. So I know that some folks have already provided their response. I don't know if folks are interested in restarting based on this conversation we've had, to restart the poll again or not. But
if anyone's provided your poll response and you'd like to change it, please raise your hand and we can restart the poll. I think Kristen has to do a little bit of work in the back end, so there's like a little delay associated with that. But if I see no hands raised in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, assuming no one wants to restart the poll, I'll do another little 5-second countdown for folks to get their votes in, and then we will share the results. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Kristen, would you please share the results with the group? So the folks here today, the majority do say that they think an improvement like this is worth $50 million or more. That's about 5 folks. And then there's another 5 folks that say it should be 30 million or less. It's worth that amount. Okay, and moving on to the next polling question. Kristen, would you please go to slide 32? So this is the polling question we really want to use to inform the small group breakouts that come next. You know, what's been shared is like largely, it is where, you know, it is the content that is expected to be included in the RFP that will be released. There's that big looming question about the Western Underground Concourse. We think that these things are the things that you know, your input can do the most to shape where things go next in the design of the station. And we want to get your feedback on this, and then we want to talk with you in small groups following this polling question. So Kristen, would you please bring the poll up? And some of the questions here, you know, what station design elements are most important for you for the Santa Clara BART station to better integrate with the surroundings, a dynamic facade on the east side of the station, a landmark sign that makes the station an easy to find and iconic station, having a modern aesthetic, having more efficient routes, and that Western Underground Concourse would fit into that bucket, having more seating, having a performance space, like Erica talked about earlier, representing the history of the Santa Clara station area, or static art on the facade. So would you please vote for what you think is the most important design element? And then we'll also talk about this using that interactive exercise I described in the small group breakouts to come. Give some time for people to provide their responses. All right, and going to do the countdown again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kristen, would you please share the results? So of the folks that responded, 5 out of 10 shared that more efficient routes were the most important to them. And then we also have some votes for a landmark sign and a dynamic facade on the east side of the station. So we're going to talk about those results and the other items up on this slide in the small group breakout discussions. Kristen, would you please go to the next slide, and actually the one that follows that. So we have three small group breakouts ready to go. Erica will be a facilitator for one. I will be the other, and Adriana will also be facilitating one of the rooms. And we'll have up the station priority pyramid group exercise and the results to the poll, the results of that last polling question and the other ones. And so basically what we want to talk with you about is in a group is for the folks in that room, what do you think the highest priority is for the next stages of station design, right? So it's all the things that we just spelled out on that previous polling question. And we want to hear from everyone, really focusing on feedback from CWG members and members of the public. If you are part of another agency that, you know, the VTA BART project regularly communicates with, we ask that, you know, you just listen because there's lots of other opportunities for us to hear from you. So before we break out, and then with when there's 5 minutes left, Kristen's going to send a message out to all the groups letting us know there's 5 minutes left. And then your facilitator will work with the group to identify a CWG member to report back to the larger group what the group talked about and what you think the most important things are to share with the larger group. So are there any questions or comments before we break off into these small group sessions? If there are, please raise your hand or drop something in the chat. And seeing none, we are going to break into the small groups. So Erica, Adriana and I will see you there, and then we'll see you all back in here in about, to stay on time, we're supposed to be back in here at about 5:10, and we've eaten up some time with some conversation. So we can cut into the next step. So Kristen, please send a message to the group at 5:10, letting us know that we have 5 minutes left to pick our member and decide what we want to report back to the larger group. And would you please send us off? So I think by the way, I think everyone's muted coming out of those small groups. So if you want to talk, you may need to unmute yourself. So I hope everyone had a nice time talking in those small groups. We are a little bit behind time. We want to give room for folks to talk. So we're going to jump right into the report backs. Erica, would you like to share which CWG member your group chose to report back and share the priority pyramid you came up with?
Sure. David is going to share, and I will share our screen here.
Sure. Let me start by saying this hierarchy of VTA needs is a pretty cool way to project this. And, I like how you did it. So it made for efficient conversation, like the rest of the meeting. I'm going to lean in just a bit because it looks a bit small for me, so it may for others. Excuse me 1 second here. What the things we move toward the top is equally weighted, representing history. But if it wasn't for more efficient routes connected and driven by the station itself, we wouldn't represent history at all. So those two emerged at the top. Some kind of landmark sign came in just under that. So there's a relative kind of top to bottom as expected. There's 3 of us that gave our opinions on these, and this is a consensus, I would say, of where they would land. The dynamic facade on the east side was something we talked about that might be able to integrate sort of a history and modern aesthetic in it, bring the two together. And then some of this performance space and art at the bottom. And anything you'd want to add to that, Michael?
No, I think you did a great job. Thanks.
Right. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you, David. Adriano, who is your CWG member, and would you please share your priority pyramid?
Yes, our CWG member is going to be Jack, and I will go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, I think we kind of agree. We felt that probably more efficient routing is probably the top priority, because people need to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible to catch their transportation, either leaving Caltrain, running through the tunnel and getting back up to get into BART, or they're driving in from the street to get in. The routing to get to the final destination of the BART train is critical to most people. The landmark signage, the station needs to be really identified clearly that it is Santa Clara, and kind of integrate that with something integrating the surroundings of the area, I guess. The rest of it just kind of falls where you kind of see it there. A representation of history, modern aesthetics, that does kind of fall in within landmark signing and integrating with the surroundings there. That all kind of falls together there. And then you see the rest of it there. The young lady that was with me, did you have any other comments you wanted to make on that?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about, the modern and representative history can go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the Benton across the way on the west side, it's like more modern.
Mm-hmm.
But it contrasts and highlights the different things. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess I'm up. Jonathan got to talk with Jonathan and Anna, and they decided that Jonathan would report back to the group. So Jonathan, would you please share what you have to say? And you should be able to see the priority pyramid you and Anna landed on.
Hi. Okay. So we have thought the most important things were making sure that we have efficient routes and a very usable station, but in creating that, also making sure that we represent history and be iconic. And we represent history, actually, the last group, I think, already called some of this out, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you copy something in the area, but you can build a building that contrasts and complements and really lets you be more aware of the history around you, fits well with the depot and with the mission without necessarily copying them. Secondary to being that iconic and having an efficient station was figuring out how we can integrate with the surroundings, especially around access, maybe not necessarily integrate architecturally. And then we couldn't really decide on some of these other ones because because our big priority is making something iconic, we want to make dynamic facade is something we think you should look at, landmark side, static art, any of those things together could help create that iconic nature. And so we think that's something we really need to look at, because we'd like to see something that's it's sad today, you go to you watch a game on TV of the 49ers and every time they show Levi Stadium, then they go show the Golden Gate Bridge or the Bay Bridge, and we'd like them to say look at this awesome BART station, right, as one of those interstitials. And so combining getting that dynamic facade or a sign or really unique art could really help make that become the new kind of iconic symbol of Santa Clara. And then we thought the performance space and additional seating were a little less important. I mean, seating is certainly important, but we figured those two kind of go together, and so they're not something maybe we need to spend time focusing on so much as trying to make sure that we have efficient routes and that iconic look to the building. I don't know anything else you want to add.
I think we were pretty much on the same page, Jonathan and I. We were all concerned about creating a place for Santa Clara, connecting it to the downtown, making it fantastic. And all of these at the top of this pyramid really make sense to us. I think this is how we do it and pay homage to a very long history in Santa Clara. We just don't want it to be another train station. It has to be more than that. We need it. There's a void.
Thank you, Jonathan and Anna. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're doing pretty well on time. I need 5 minutes for next steps. I'll give a couple minutes if any folks want to share observations or make comments on that which was just shared between the 3 different breakout groups. Seeing no hands, hearing none, we'll jump on to next steps. There we go. Thanks, Kristen. So next steps. So the next engagement opportunity for the overall VTA BART project, we're hosting a summer community social. It's going to be on August 27th. It's going to be in the downtown, the block where the downtown San Jose station will go. And this is basically because it's central. It's next to VTA Customer Service Center, which works really well for us for logistics. So we'll have some there'll be a lot of good stuff there. More to come about it. We're close to finalizing it. There's a lot of things I want to say, but I want to make sure we get them locked in before I say them. But it should be a feel-good community event. Folks will be out there to talk with. And Anna, we want to talk with you about coming out to represent the Santa Clara station. We expect there to be a booth for the Santa Clara station. We'd like you to be out there to talk with folks as in your role as chair. Next slide, Kristen. And then we have the next round of the CWG meetings. We're going back to the regular format for those. So the next one for Santa Clara will be September 15th. And as we talked about earlier, we're also going to start the design review committees again. So those are expected to start roughly 12 to 6 months after the contractor for the Santa Clara station yard are on board. That's the contractor expected to be brought on in Q2 2023. Which means the design review committee is expected to start in around 2024. And some of the potential topics are there that we shared earlier. They're the themes we continue to hear, right? Establishing a sense of place, activating the station, integrating art. And then next slide. And then the regular reminders of ways to stay involved with the project. You can subscribe to updates on the project website. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And actually that survey, I think that already went out. So that's the survey. We want to make sure as the project advances, right, we enter into construction, we want to make sure we have all the information we need to communicate with folks. So we went and knocked on a lot of doors, asking folks, what are your communication, how do we communicate with you? What are the channels, right? What's your phone number? What's your email? What's your address? And then how do you prefer to be contacted? Do you like to be called? Do you like email? Do you like text? Do you like paper mail? Stuff like that. And we continue to collect that information. So you'll see us out at some tabling events, and we'll have sheets that we're asking folks to fill that information out. So report back to your communities if they haven't provided that information to us, please do. And if you see us out one of the events in your community, please add that information to the sheet. So I think that's all we have for today. So thanks everybody for participating. Hope to see you at the community social. And if not there, we'll see you at a tabling event, or we will see you at the next Santa Clara CWG in September. Have a great evening, everybody.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye all, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care,
Take care, everyone.